know, for the first time in the history of India, we are joining our hands with US Homeland Security. So without any further delay, I would like to present Miss Amy Storer speaking on child exploitation and human slavery. Over to you, ma'am.
Good afternoon. My name is Amy Storr. I am speaking today as a researcher, a professor, and I also work at Homeland Security Investigations. I am very honored to be part of the SIACON conference, and I look forward to learning from each and every one of you. India is one of the greatest countries for cyber in the world, and one of the greatest innovators of our time. For me, one of the greatest parts about being involved with this conference is to be able to spread the message and to be able to connect leaders around the world for tools and resources and talent that we can use to fight for the greater good in the challenge of human slavery and child exploitation. Worldwide, we're in a complete crisis with the levels of human slavery and child exploitation in the United States and around the world. For me, I am quite devastated to complete the research and to identify that a child is trafficked every 2.5 hours in the world. Children also represent over half of all human slavery victims. 1 in 4 children will unfortunately become victims of child exploitation in some estimates as we have currently studied. Unfortunately, it is going to take a lot of talent and effort to really combat this growing epidemic. The world was shocked by the evils of Jeffrey Epstein. As we've seen, there are unfortunately many hundreds and hundreds of victims that suffered under his disgusting acts. Sadly, Jeffrey Epstein is one of many that are out there hurting children, abusing children, and selling children for sex. Human slavery is one of the most horrific crimes that is continuing to plague our nation and our world. The United States is one of the top 3 nations of origin for human slavery victims, along with the Philippines and Mexico. The fact that we are in the top 3 is very disturbing in the land of the free. The industry is producing over $150 billion per year off the backs of slavery. That includes labor slavery, that includes sex slavery, that includes child slavery in those categories. Unfortunately, we are facing an uphill battle with current legislation that is causing us a lot of hardship to identify victims. In the United States right now, there is currently a bill that is trying to pass in Congress, and I'm hoping it will not pass, but it will be very devastating to our ability to find victims. A member of Congress has proposed a bill to stop all federal law enforcement in the United States from using AI facial recognition to identify these victims. This is why we need the help of the SIACON people. We need the help of anyone that can provide us tools and resources that we can use to find these victims. As we unfortunately battle these legal challenges that we are faced with, we need to identify other resources and other tools from experts in the world, such as yourself, that we can learn from and that we can hopefully grow and come to rely upon in a global force for good, a unification of souls to fight for these children, many of which do not have anyone fighting for them, including our United States Congress and lawmakers. Sadly, 60%, 60 to, in some studies, 80% actually, of child sex slavery victims in the United States come from the foster care system. Very tragically, these children are oftentimes never reported missing to the authorities. They do not have people that care about them. They do not have loving parents and loving families to protect them and reach out to them. Very tragically, those children oftentimes fall victim to human slavery, and especially child slavery, which is very sad that the traffickers, these slave owners, are very much targeting those types of children that come from broken homes. The numbers clearly paint the story on the types of children these traffickers are going after. Every 2.5 hours, a child is sold into sex slavery. It is estimated that every time a child goes missing, within 3 hours, they are approached by a human trafficker. There are 20 to 40 million estimated victims of human trafficking in the world. When I first started doing this type of work, I thought there was no way this could be true. Unfortunately, after my years of work in this industry, I have learned to find that those numbers are actually probably low. I believe the numbers are even higher than what is estimated. Currently, we have so many victims in circulation that the traffickers and the pimps will simply go to jail if we're lucky to get them prosecuted and get them behind bars. Unfortunately, they will get back out and continue their trafficking schemes, or someone else will just simply take over the human slavery enterprise and continue circulating those victims over and over. Unfortunately, once these young children fall victim into this terrible, terrible game, they oftentimes never get out. And they oftentimes are so manipulated and so controlled to the point that they will actually ask their trafficker if they are allowed to order a cheeseburger at McDonald's. This actually has happened in one of my cases. These children and women, unfortunately, do not have a voice. They do not have somebody speaking up for them as a parent, as a loving family member. They, unfortunately, the only person that they claim to love is the one person that is actually enslaving them every single day. Children that are sold into sex slavery are sold at least 4 to 5 times per day for sex once they are in this horrific experience. The amount of psychological damage that is upon them is insurmountable. I've worked cases involving things that I could not even say on this conference, involving child sex torture chambers where the children's genitals are being actually mutilated and abused violently. I have seen cases where these children are unfortunately being abused to the point of actually danger to their lives physically. And it is very tragic that this is becoming, unfortunately, becoming worse and worse each year. The number of human trafficking cases and incidents continues to skyrocket each year in every state across America and globally, unfortunately. The epidemic of the human slavery crisis is becoming expounded exponentially by the global drug trade and the rise of the opioid epidemic in the United States of America. The opioid crisis has killed more Americans than the Iraq and Afghanistan wars combined. America has a serious drug addiction problem. However, what I would like to stress upon the drug addiction problem in America is the connection with the human slave enterprise. I guarantee the majority of these drugs are being pumped into the bodies of human slaves for sale. These traffickers use these drugs as debt bondage and control upon them, to the point that these girls are so drugged that they will not go to the police. They are so addicted to the drug that they are basically unable to function in any other aspect of their life. The trafficker simply transports these bodies to have sex with in their extremely drugged condition. In addition, he will force them to have sex as a means of debt bondage, to force them to pay for drugs that they are unfortunately being addicted to by these traffickers. And when I tell you that most of these females ages 18 to 25 that are addicted to drugs, the majority of them are unfortunately human slavery victims, or they fall into the trap of human slavery. The prison system is another way of major recruitment in this country. Unfortunately, these people, anybody who is facing a vulnerable time in their life, is highly vulnerable to falling into human slavery. There are three types of human slave owners in the world. The first type is a Romeo pimp. The Romeo pimp will oftentimes recruit young victims and give them affection that they've been deprived from. Affection is a drug to the deprived. Affection to children who have never had loving parents, who have never had anyone pay attention to them. That is a very real tactic that these Romeo pimps are using on the internet, specifically on social media, to recruit victims in mass proportions. Next, we also have what's known as the opportunity pimp. The opportunity pimp is the one that will recruit victims with a fake job offer, or it could be a real job offer that is a very grandiose promise to give someone a better job, to give someone a better life, specifically to give someone a better job or a better life, to come to a country like America, where everyone is very much excited to go and hoping to get a new life, a better life. Very sadly, that hope of freedom and that hope of what America stands for is oftentimes a trap by these traffickers to enslave them. Unfortunately, these opportunity pimps prey upon these women and men and children to come to America for a better life, to come to America and promise them that they will get them here, and they end up becoming victims of human slavery on farms. 80% of child labor trafficking victims are in the agriculture industry and farming and in fishing. Very sadly, these children are being brutally worked in some cases to death on these farms by these greedy slave owners. It is hard to believe the magnitude that is going on in this country and in the world. America does not have as much problem with child labor issues as does Southeast Asia, in particular India, in particular China, in particular Thailand, and other countries where Southeast Asia is becoming a very much a hotbed for that type of activity, unfortunately. So that's why it's also very important that we're bringing in the human trafficking aspect to this conference in the area of Southeast Asia. My goal for this presentation is to hopefully unify the forces and unify the talent and identify people out there in this conference, in your incredible country, who have skills, who have knowledge, who have a particular ability to create technology, to create facial recognition, to create any type of idea that you may have to help us identify these victims. Oftentimes in these horrific child sex torture chambers, these videos in the dark web, these horrific videos and horrific acts that are occurring, we are only able to see a trace of a victim's face, a trace of a perpetrator's face. And that is what we're trying to identify. We are trying to look for any ways that we can manipulate data, that we can try to find also big picture ideas of the trafficking networks. I am very open-minded to learning different technologies, both as a professor and also as a researcher and a Homeland Security employee. I believe that knowledge is power. I think this conference is a great way for us to really bring together leaders in tech and industry. Artificial intelligence is a beautiful thing. I see it as a positive thing for law enforcement at all different levels. Facial recognition gives basically more correct ability than the human eye to detect facial similarities. In many cases, the human eye is inaccurate in terms of if this photo is a match. Facial recognition, as we continue to evolve, especially as we continue to improve upon this technology, is an excellent tool for law enforcement to get a better picture or to at least narrow down a suspect list. It can also exonerate the innocent. Another very important aspect of facial recognition, of AI technology, is the ability to not only find the perpetrator, but also the ability to exonerate the innocent. And I say that with the idea that, for example, this technology might identify the child with a different individual than perhaps the suspect, okay? So that is one of the big reasons why I believe we should get AI facial recognition technology into surveillance cameras worldwide to identify missing children. In the United States, over 400,000 children go missing each and every single year. We have the highest rate of any other country in the world that keeps this record. Sadly, there's been estimates that approximately 40 to 50% of these children end up in the child sex slave trade. Very, very sad situation. I believe these children could be identified through facial recognition technology in surveillance cameras, in stores and banks. If we have businesses, if we have companies willing to come together to allow facial recognition for these missing children worldwide in their security cameras, we could really make a difference. And if anyone knows someone out there or has a business or has interest in participating as well in that effort, we would love to be part of that. I also want to put out there the Biometrica team, who is trying to make an effort worldwide to allow police departments worldwide to use facial detection in order for all law enforcement globally as a unified effort to identify targets of interest or victims that possibly have had an arrest record. If you want to find a suspect or you're looking for a human trafficking victim who may have had a previous arrest photo taken, this exact particular technology would be an incredible resource. If anyone out there is interested, I am happy to connect you I am happy to learn from each and every one of you worldwide on your ideas and what we can do to better make a difference to fight these horrific crimes against children and to end slavery. I appreciate you all, and I hope to hear from you soon. Thank you so much.
So I hope you must have enjoyed today's keynote and technical sessions, and you might have learned a lot. Let's meet tomorrow as we'll be announcing the CTF winners, and we're having a CTF by Security Innovations, and they're giving some amazing prizes, followed by a keynote talk by Ted Harrington, and after that we'll be having IoT Village.